Happy Friday, ambitious readers. Hello from the Denver International Airport, where I am recording this week's edition after a lot of travel this week and burning the candle at both ends. It's a busy airport. There's nowhere to sit, but we need an edition of Reading Ambitiously. So let's go ahead and jump into this week's big idea, which is lessons learned from vibe coding AmbitiousOS. Just 14 days ago, AmbitiousOS was a good idea on a Friday night. Today, it's live in production, and we're running with about 20 beta testers that are using the system today. And 2 weeks from idea to production would have sounded very unrealistic not too long ago, but with Claude Code, it's starting to feel like the new normal. In fact, one of my colleagues put it earlier to me this week, before Claude Code, BCC, and after Claude Code, ACC. And so here are the top 5 lessons that I learned in the last 2 weeks building the AmbitiousOS with Claude Code. The first lesson is that the data set is a shadow of its creator. Now, Ralph Waldo Emerson has this great line, which I enjoy, which is, an institution is the lengthened shadow of one man. Well, AI's output is the downstream of a data set, and that data set is initially curated by humans. So while the intelligence is not new, it's just been relocated, packaged, and now is being distributed by an LLM. AmbitiousOS itself is constrained exclusively to my personal research and writing. In fact, over the last 2 years, I have curated and created over 5,000 pieces of material that make up the corpus of data that powers the AmbitiousOS, and the LLM is retrieving directly from that data set. And before a single token is burned, that data set has already been pre-filtered by my brain and essentially pre-weighted by me as the author of much of it. And I think this matters because now that intelligence is, quote, artificial, in a lot of ways, that intelligence is an extension of me. It's curator and creator of the underlying data. And maybe that's both surprising and not surprising that when you're using the AmbitiousOS, it feels like a lot like you're talking to me. And I think this is an interesting insight because growing up, I was always the person that my family members asked to plug in the VCR. I was the in-family IT consultant, and I get great joy out of explaining technology to others, which is why I like writing Reading Ambitiously every week. And now that we've taken Reading Ambitiously and given it to AI, it feels a lot like that, an extension of me. And I think this is an important lesson for anyone that's building or investing in AI. Because right now, AI for insert your best idea is pretty exciting, but I think you have to look extra hard at the team that's going to be building this. Because the best systems are built in the image of their creators, because their creators deeply care about why those systems exist in the first place. The second lesson is that Claude lets me use the full power of a database, and I absolutely love it. I'm not a trained database analyst, and Claude built out the AmbitiousOS using Postgres, and wow, is it powerful. If we all thought Excel was an interesting way to use a database, this is exponentially better. You're able to query, transform, validate, you can refactor, and I can do all of this by talking to Claude with my voice. Now, earlier this week, Databricks reported that AI agents are now creating 80% of all databases. And that's not a surprise to me because I must say, working in the terminal with direct access to the database is one of the most pleasurable user experiences I've ever had. And I think it's only going to get better from here with the ability to speak in plain English to AI agents that then are able to help create highly personalized software for you. The third lesson is that vibe coding a dashboard is one thing. Getting your system into production is way harder. So I think a lot of us have started by vibe coding a dashboard and maybe an HTML front end. Gosh, has this given me an even greater appreciation for how hard it is to manufacture and ship software. And that's what I do for a living. And at one point, Claude said, hey, let's check the logs. And I went to look and realized, well, we didn't even have any logging infrastructure. We don't have something like Datadog in my vibe coded piece of software. And I realized, well, I'm not even a software engineer. And so there's a lot that goes into manufacturing software. And while I could just ask Claude to invent something and wire it up and ship it, there's a big difference between going from a prototype and going into production. And it's a lot of work. I probably spent 2, maybe 3 days on the sex and sizzle features in the AmbitiousOS, and I spent 12 on security, deployment, maintenance, and fixing bugs. Now, if you spent your whole career in enterprise software, you already know this, and you know that we refer to it as the waterline and what's underneath the iceberg. And so while AI is compressing the visible work, it's not eliminating the invisible work. And that distance between prototype and production is collapsing really fast, but you're going to hit the hard part sooner. And a lot of today's AI demos really sort of have these ingredients: a frontier model, some context and data, and then the ability to take actions through tool use, which is cool. And it results in a lot of interesting cocktail tricks and wow moments. But I think many will come to a great appreciation for is the actual manufacturing that goes on to put things into production and the complexity of what's underneath the waterline: security, permissions, controlling your secrets, entitlements, deployments, pipelines, observability, auditing, regression testing, incident response, rollback. Like, none of this is free, but it is something you're going to need to have to build software. So think carefully if you're getting into the software development business. The fourth is that now we're live, we have a lot of obligations. It's one thing for me to demo, but we have 20 users and they're writing in and telling me about bugs and asking for feature enhancements. And this past week has been dominated mostly by taking care of a lot of technical debt. I've been asking Claude to act as my CISO and my partner in SDLC and the actual pipeline and deployment of the application. And so that's been interesting. Earlier this week, one of our private beta testers wrote in and said, "Hey, I can't log in," because we had just implemented some new authentication workflows. They sent an email with some information about some bugs. Well, I happen to be on the airplane to this trip somewhere over the middle of the United States, and I fired up Claude Code on United's Wi-Fi at 35,000 feet, and I gave Claude a copy of the email, and I said, "Hey, we got to fix this bug." And Claude said, "Well, I think this bug is a known issue with our authentication workflow, and I think that Microsoft Outlook is clicking our link, our magic link, before the user can log in, and it's burning our authentication token. And this is a known and documented problem. And I would like to present the following fix." Well, it wrote the code for that fix. It committed it. It pushed it to GitHub, and it redeployed the application, and then wrote that user an email letting them know that Claude had fixed the bug. And the user was able to log in flawlessly. And so seriously, like, what a time to be alive if you can do that from 35,000 feet with your AI agents. All right, fifth and finally, I think the roadmap for AmbitiousOS will just be more and more AI native. I want to give it a voice. I know we can do that. I want to give it a phone number so that you can call it. I want you to be able to message it on WhatsApp. On the roadmap are some important infrastructure to be able to do that, like an MCP server to set up the conversational interface. But there's a lot of really less glamorous work on the roadmap, including adding a persistence infrastructure, a chat history, stronger security controls, and a lot more hardening. And I think this is the old trap in software. Like, I'm not able to spend my entire development budget on the sex and sizzle features that sell software. Claude is very good at building those in a matter of minutes. But once you decide to actually build the software, you can't spend 100% of your budget on just those features. You're running a software company now, and the advantage goes to the team that focuses on continuing to build. But you've got to build a system that's reliable, available, secure, safe, and maintainable. All right, that's about all the time that we've got. I think they're boarding my flight soon. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. It's a new world. Be safe out there.